Hi, I'm Madison. I'm a high school guidance counselor who believes everyone deserves a second chance. But the day my sister Emma banned me from her wedding, I discovered that some secrets are too dangerous to keep hidden. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is break someone's heart to save their life. It started 3 weeks before Emma's big day. I was sitting at my kitchen table, addressing invitations for a bridal shower I was throwing for her, when my phone buzzed. Emma's name flashed on the screen, and I answered with a smile, expecting to discuss last-minute details about centerpieces or menu changes. Madison, we need to talk. Her voice was cold, formal, nothing like the excited bride-to-be I'd been planning with for months. Sure, what's up? Did you finally decide on the buttercream or fondant for the cake? You're not coming to the wedding. The words hit me like a physical blow. I dropped my pen and it rolled across the table, leaving a blue streak on the ivory invitation I'd been writing. What do you mean I'm not coming? Emma, I'm your maid of honor. I've been planning this wedding with you for 8 months. Not anymore. Mom agrees. We think it's better if you just stay away. The familiar sting of rejection washed over me. This wasn't the first time my family had decided I was the problem, but it hurt just as much as it always did. Emma, what are you talking about? What did I do? You know what you did. That conversation with Jake last week. Mom said you were asking weird questions, making him uncomfortable. She said you were starting drama again, just like you always do. I closed my eyes, remembering the conversation she was referring to. I'd run into Jake, Emma's fiancé, at the grocery store. What started as casual small talk had taken an unexpected turn when he mentioned his previous job in Denver. Something about the way he avoided eye contact when I asked about it had triggered my counselor instincts. After 15 years of helping teenagers navigate trauma and secrets, you develop a sixth sense about when someone is hiding something significant. Emma, I wasn't starting drama. I was just making conversation. Right. Like you were just making conversation when you ruined Jessica's engagement party by bringing up her ex. Or when you accidentally mentioned Sarah's financial problems at her baby shower. You can't help yourself, Madison. You always have to dig, always have to find something wrong. Each accusation felt like a separate knife wound. The worst part was that some of them contained grains of truth, twisted and reshaped into weapons. Yes, I'd questioned Jessica about her ex, because I'd seen him following her social media obsessively and was worried about her safety. Yes, I'd mentioned Sarah's situation, because I was trying to connect her with resources that could help. But in my family's version of events, I was always the troublemaker, the one who couldn't leave well enough alone. This is different, Emma, please. Just listen to me for 1 minute. No, I'm done listening. This is my wedding day, Madison. The most important day of my life. And I won't let you ruin it with your conspiracy theories and your need to be the center of attention. The line went dead. I sat there in my kitchen, surrounded by wedding favors I'd been assembling, RSVPs I'd been organizing, and the detailed timeline I'd created to make sure Emma's day would be perfect. The irony wasn't lost on me. I'd spent months planning a wedding I was now banned from attending. 20 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time, it was Mom. Madison, honey, Emma told me about your conversation. Mom, you have to know this is crazy. I'm her sister. I'm supposed to be her maid of honor. I know it's hard, sweetheart, but Emma's right. You do have a tendency to create problems where none exist. Remember your cousin Michael's wedding? You spent the entire reception talking about how his bride seemed off to you. They divorced 6 months later, and everyone blamed you for planting seeds of doubt. They divorced because he was having an affair, Mom. An affair that started before the wedding. I wasn't planting seeds of doubt. I was seeing red flags that everyone else chose to ignore. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You always think you know better than everyone else. You see problems that aren't there. The frustration in my mother's voice was palpable, but underneath it, I heard something else. Exhaustion. She was tired of mediating between Emma and me, tired of the drama that seemed to follow our family gatherings, tired of having a daughter who couldn't just smile and keep her mouth shut. Mom, what if this time I'm right? What if Jake is hiding something that Emma needs to know before she legally binds herself to him for life? Madison, listen to yourself. The man loves your sister. He works hard. He treats her well. He makes her happy. What more do you want? I want him to be honest with her. About what? What exactly do you think he's hiding? This was the moment I'd been dreading. The moment when I'd have to voice the suspicions that had been growing in my mind since that grocery store conversation. The problem was, I didn't have concrete proof yet, just instincts honed by years of professional experience, and a nagging feeling that something about Jake's story didn't add up. I think he's been married before, and I don't think it ended the way he told Emma it did. The silence on the other end of the line stretched so long I wondered if the call had dropped. "Madison," Mom finally said, her voice careful and controlled. "Jake told Emma about his previous marriage. She knows about the divorce. They've discussed it. But has she seen the divorce papers? Has she met anyone from his life in Denver? Has she talked to any of his friends or family from before he moved here?" Those are not appropriate questions to ask someone. They are if you're planning to marry them. "Madison Rose Thompson, you are going to stop this right now. Emma has found a good man who loves her, and you are not going to destroy her happiness because you've convinced yourself there's some grand conspiracy. Do you understand me?" The use of my full name meant the conversation was over. It was Mom's way of pulling rank, of reminding me that, despite being 32 years old, I was still her child and expected to fall in line. "I understand that you've already made up your mind," I said quietly. "I understand that my youngest daughter deserves to have the wedding of her dreams without her sister stirring up trouble. Don't call Emma again, Madison. Don't show up at the venue. Don't try to contact Jake. Give Emma this one day. Can you do that for her?" After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen for 2 hours, staring at the wedding planning materials scattered across my table. The save-the-date magnets I'd designed, the guest list I'd helped compile, the menu tasting notes in my handwriting, the timeline I'd created, color-coded and laminated to ensure everything would run smoothly. Emma's words echoed in my head. "You always have to dig, always have to find something wrong." Maybe she was right. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe years of counseling troubled teenagers had made me see threats where none existed. Maybe I was so used to uncovering family secrets and addressing hidden trauma that I couldn't turn it off in my personal life. But then I remembered Jake's face when I'd asked about his previous job. The way his eyes had shifted left before he answered. A classic tell that someone is accessing creative memory rather than factual recall. The way he'd quickly changed the subject when I'd commented on what a big change it must have been to leave Denver. The fact that in 8 months of wedding planning, Emma had never mentioned meeting any of his friends or family from his previous life. And I remembered something else. Something that had been nagging at me since that grocery store conversation, but that I hadn't fully processed until now. When I'd mentioned Denver, Jake had said he'd worked in downtown Denver. But when Emma had told the story of how they met, she'd said he'd moved here from Aurora, a suburb of Denver, not downtown. It was a small discrepancy, the kind of thing most people would overlook. But I'd spent enough time with teenagers who were trying to keep their stories straight about where they'd been and what they'd been doing to recognize the significance of conflicting details. I picked up my phone and stared at Emma's contact information. Mom had told me not to call, but she hadn't said anything about texting. I started typing several messages and deleted them all. What could I say? That I had a feeling? That something seemed off? That his story didn't add up in ways I couldn't quite articulate? Instead, I opened my laptop and did something I probably should have done months ago. I started researching Jake Morrison from Denver, Colorado. What I found in the next 3 hours changed everything. Jake Morrison had indeed lived in Denver. He'd indeed been married before. But according to the public records I found, he'd never been divorced. His previous marriage had ended not with divorce papers, but with a death certificate. His wife, Sarah Morrison, had died 3 years ago in what the Denver police had classified as a domestic violence incident under investigation. The case had never been closed. Jake had left Colorado 6 months after Sarah's death, right around the time the investigation had been transferred to the cold case division. I sat back in my chair, my hands shaking as I stared at the screen. This wasn't about Jake having a complicated past or even hiding a previous marriage. This was about Emma potentially marrying a man who might have killed his first wife. I picked up my phone and called Emma's number, It went straight to voicemail. I called mom. Same thing. I tried Emma's work number, her best friend, even her college roommate. Nothing. They'd closed ranks the way my family always did when they decided I was the problem. For the first time in my life, I truly hoped I was wrong. I hoped my instincts were off, my suspicions unfounded, my pattern recognition skills finally failing me. I hoped that Jake Morrison was exactly what he appeared to be, a man who'd suffered a tragic loss and found love again with my sister. But the evidence suggested otherwise, and in 3 days, Emma was going to marry him. I spent the next 2 days trying to reach Emma through every channel I could think of. I drove to her apartment, but she wouldn't answer the door even though I could see her car in the parking lot. I went to her workplace, but her coworkers said she'd taken the week off for wedding preparations. I even showed up at her favorite coffee shop at the time she usually got her morning latte, but she must have changed her routine. Each failed attempt at contact strengthened their narrative that I was obsessed, unhinged, unable to let go. I could picture the conversations. She showed up at my work. She's driving by my apartment. She won't stop calling. To them, I looked like exactly what they'd accused me of being. A sister who couldn't accept that she wasn't welcome, who couldn't respect boundaries, who couldn't stop stirring up drama. But I wasn't stirring up drama. I was trying to prevent a tragedy. On the morning of the wedding, I made a decision that would change everything. If my family wouldn't listen to me, if Emma wouldn't take my calls, if they were determined to see me as the problem regardless of what I did or didn't do, then I would give them exactly what they expected. I would give Emma a wedding gift she'd never forget. I'd spent years being the family scapegoat, the troublemaker, the one who couldn't leave well enough alone. I'd been blamed for ruining celebrations, for asking uncomfortable questions, for seeing problems where everyone else saw happiness. Today, for the first time, I was going to lean into that reputation. I was going to be the sister who crashed the wedding, but I wasn't going to do it with accusations or confrontations or dramatic outbursts. I was going to do it with evidence. Cold, hard, undeniable evidence that would speak louder than any speech I could give. The gift I'd prepared sat on my passenger seat as I drove toward the venue. A beautiful lakeside resort where Emma had dreamed of getting married since she was 12 years old. It wasn't wrapped in white paper with silver ribbon like the other presents stacked on the gift table would be. Instead, it was contained in a simple manila envelope marked with Emma's name in my careful handwriting. Inside that envelope were copies of everything I'd found: Sarah Morrison's death certificate, police reports from the domestic violence investigation, hospital records showing Sarah's previous visits to the emergency room, visits that painted a picture of escalating abuse, witness statements from neighbors who'd reported hearing arguments and screaming from the Morrison apartment, financial records showing that Jake had inherited a substantial life insurance payout after Sarah's death, and, most damning of all, a letter Sarah had written to her sister just weeks before her death. A letter I'd found in the digital archives of a Denver domestic violence advocacy group that had been trying to help her leave Jake. In it, Sarah had detailed her fear that Jake would kill her if she tried to divorce him. She'd described his threats, his violence, his promises that she'd never be free of him. The letter ended with a sentence that had haunted me since I'd read it. I know how this story ends. I just hope someone will make sure he doesn't get to write it again with someone else. Emma deserved to know who she was marrying. She deserved to make an informed choice about her future. She deserved the chance to save herself from becoming Sarah Morrison's replacement. Even if it meant she'd never speak to me again. Even if it meant confirming every terrible thing my family believed about me. Even if it meant spending the rest of my life as the sister who ruined Emma's wedding day. Because some gifts aren't meant to bring joy. Some gifts are meant to save lives. As I pulled into the resort parking lot, I could see wedding guests beginning to arrive. Women in pastel dresses and men in summer suits, all carrying elegantly wrapped presents and bright smiles. The sun was shining, the lake was sparkling, and everything looked perfect for Emma's dream wedding. I sat in my car for a moment, holding the envelope that would change everything. Once I walked through those doors, there would be no going back. My relationship with Emma, with Mom, with our entire family would never be the same. But Sarah Morrison would never get another chance to escape. Emma still could. I opened my car door and stepped into the sunshine, carrying my sister's future in a manila envelope. I walked through the resort's grand entrance, the manila envelope tucked securely under my arm. The lobby buzzed with wedding energy, guests checking in, florists making final adjustments to centerpieces, and coordinators speaking in hushed, urgent tones into their headsets. Everything was proceeding exactly as Emma had planned, down to the white roses and baby's breath arrangements we'd chosen together months ago. The irony wasn't lost on me that I was about to destroy a wedding I'd helped plan in excruciating detail. I made my way toward the gift table, positioned elegantly near the entrance to the ceremony space. White linens, silver accents, and a towering display of beautifully wrapped presents. Everything Emma had dreamed of. My envelope would look stark and out of place among the elaborate packaging, but that seemed fitting. The truth rarely comes wrapped in pretty paper. Madison? I turned to find my cousin Rebecca approaching, her face a mixture of surprise and concern. She was one of Emma's bridesmaids, wearing the dusty rose dress we'd all selected together during what felt like a lifetime ago. Beck, hi. I tried to keep my voice casual, normal, as if showing up at a wedding I'd been banned from was perfectly reasonable behavior. What are you doing here? Emma said you weren't coming. Change of plans, I said, clutching the envelope tighter. I have something for Emma, a gift. Rebecca's eyes dropped to the manila envelope, and I could see her trying to process why a wedding gift would come in such unusual packaging. Madison, maybe this isn't the best idea. Emma was really upset about your conversation last week. Mom said, I know what Mom said. I know what everyone thinks. But Beck, I need you to listen to me for just 1 second. I looked around, making sure we weren't being overheard. What if I told you that Jake isn't who Emma thinks he is? What if I told you he might be dangerous? The expression on Rebecca's face shifted from concern to something approaching alarm. Not the kind of alarm that comes from recognizing danger, but the kind that comes from realizing you're talking to someone who might be having a breakdown. Madison, sweetie, you're scaring me a little. Have you been getting enough sleep? When's the last time you talked to someone professional about what? About my tendency to see problems that don't exist? About my inability to just be happy for my sister? About the stress you've been under? Planning this wedding, your job, everything with Dad's health scare last year. Sometimes when we're overwhelmed, we can start to see patterns that... Rebecca. I cut her off, my voice sharper than I intended. His first wife didn't die in an accident. She died during a domestic violence incident that was never solved. The police in Denver still have an open investigation. The color drained from Rebecca's face. For a moment, I thought I'd finally gotten through to someone, that finally a member of my family would listen to what I was trying to tell them. Instead, she pulled out her phone. I'm calling your mom, she said, her fingers already moving across the screen. You need help, Madison. This isn't normal behavior. I watched her walk away. Phone pressed to her ear, probably telling Mom that I'd shown up at the wedding with conspiracy theories and needed to be removed before I caused a scene. Within minutes, I knew my presence here would be reported up the family chain of command. Mom would call Emma, Emma would call Jake, and security would be looking for me. I had maybe 10 minutes before I'd be escorted out. I moved quickly toward the gift table, but before I could place my envelope among the other presents, a firm hand landed on my shoulder. Madison. The voice belonged to my Uncle Tom, Rebecca's father, who apparently had been designated as family security for the day. Emma doesn't want you here. I know that, but I have something she needs to see. Whatever it is can wait until after the honeymoon. This is her day. Uncle Tom, please. Just let me put this on the gift table. She doesn't even have to open it today. But she needs to have it. He looked down at the envelope, his expression skeptical. What's in there that's so important it can't wait 2 weeks? Information about Jake that could save her life. The words hung in the air between us. Tom's grip on my shoulder loosened slightly, and I could see him trying to decide whether I was being dramatic or whether there might be some kernel of truth in what I was saying. Madison, I've known you since you were born. You're a good person with a good heart, but you've always had an active imagination. Remember when you were convinced that Mrs. Henderson next door was running a drug operation because she got a lot of packages? She was running a drug operation. She got arrested 6 months later. Okay, bad example. But the point is, sometimes you see intrigue where there's just normal life happening. Jake seems like a decent guy. He makes Emma happy. His first wife thought he was decent too, right up until the night she died. Tom studied my face for a long moment, and I could see him weighing his options. He could forcibly remove me from the venue, creating exactly the kind of scene Emma wanted to avoid. He could let me place the envelope on the gift table and hope it would satisfy me enough to leave quietly, or he could listen to what I was trying to tell him. "Show me," he said finally. "What?" "You say you have information about Jake. Show me what you found." I looked around the lobby, searching for somewhere we could talk privately. "Not here. Too many people." He nodded toward a small alcove near the resort's business center, away from the wedding traffic. We walked over together and I opened the envelope, pulling out a few key documents. "This is Sarah Morrison's death certificate," I said, handing him the paper. "Jake's first wife. Notice the date and cause of death." Tom read it carefully, his expression growing more serious. "Domestic violence incident under investigation." What does that mean exactly? "It means the police think someone killed her, but they couldn't prove who. Look at this." I showed him the police report summary I'd managed to obtain. 3 previous domestic violence calls to their address in the 6 months before her death. Neighbors reported hearing arguing and screaming. Hospital records show she was treated for suspicious injuries twice. Tom was quiet as he read, his jaw tightening with each new piece of information. "And Jake was never charged?" "Never charged, never cleared. He left Denver 6 months after her death, right around the time the case went cold." This could all be circumstantial, Madison. Maybe he left because he couldn't handle living in the same city where his wife died. Maybe he needed a fresh start. Maybe. Or maybe he left because the police were getting too close to the truth. I pulled out the final document, Sarah's letter to her sister. "Read this." Tom read Sarah's words describing her fear, Jake's threats, her certainty that he would kill her if she tried to leave. When he finished, his hands were shaking slightly. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. "Does Emma know any of this?" "She knows he was married before. She knows his wife died. But she thinks it was an accident. Jake told her Sarah fell down the stairs." "And you're sure this is the same Jake Morrison?" I showed him the photographs I'd found, Jake and Sarah together at various events. Clearly the same man who was about to become my brother-in-law. Same person, same timeline, same story. "Uncle Tom, Emma is about to marry a man who very likely murdered his first wife." Tom looked at the documents again, then at me, then toward the ceremony space where guests were beginning to take their seats. "We have to tell her." "I've been trying to tell her for weeks. She won't listen to me. Mom won't listen. No one will listen because they all think I'm the family troublemaker who can't stand to see Emma happy." "But this is different. This is evidence." "Evidence they'll say I fabricated. Evidence they'll say I'm misinterpreting. Evidence they'll say proves I need professional help." I took a deep breath. "Uncle Tom, I need to get this information to Emma directly. She has to see it with her own eyes. Make her own decision about what to do with it." "How?" "She's in the bridal suite getting ready. There's no way she'll agree to see you, especially not an hour before the ceremony." I looked toward the gift table, then back at Tom. "I need you to take this to her. Tell her it's from me, but don't tell her what it is. Just say I wanted her to have something before the ceremony." "Madison, I can't." "You can. You're her uncle. She trusts you. She'll at least look at whatever you give her." Tom held the envelope, weighing it in his hands as if he could measure the consequences of what I was asking him to do. "What if you're wrong? What if Jake is innocent, and this destroys her wedding day for nothing? Then I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to her. But Uncle Tom, what if I'm right? What if we let her marry him and 6 months from now she ends up like Sarah?" The ceremony music began playing softly in the background, the prelude Emma had chosen months ago. In 30 minutes, the processional would begin. In 45 minutes, she would be Mrs. Jake Morrison, legally bound to a man who might have killed his first wife. "Please," I whispered. "She's my sister. I can't let this happen to her." Tom looked at me for a long moment, and I could see him making his decision. "Give me the envelope." I handed it over, feeling a mixture of relief and terror. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. If this goes badly, we're both going to be persona non grata in this family for a very long time. If this goes badly and I'm right, that won't matter. If this goes badly and I'm wrong, I deserve whatever happens to me. Tom nodded and walked toward the elevator that would take him to the bridal suite. I watched him disappear behind the closing doors, carrying with him the information that would either save my sister's life or destroy our family forever. I found a chair in the lobby where I could see both the elevator and the entrance to the ceremony space. Guests continued to arrive, friends and family members I'd known my whole life, all dressed up and excited to celebrate Emma's big day. A few of them spotted me and looked confused. They'd probably heard I wasn't coming, but no one approached me directly. The minutes crawled by. 10 minutes, 15, 20. Then the elevator doors opened and Tom emerged. His face was pale and he was moving with the kind of urgent purpose that told me Emma had read the documents. He crossed the lobby quickly and came straight to where I was sitting. "She wants to see you," he said quietly. "Room 412, the bridal suite." "How did she take it?" "About as well as you'd expect. She's upset, confused, scared. Her bridesmaids are trying to calm her down, but she sent them away. It's just her up there now." I stood up, my legs unsteady. "Is she calling off the wedding?" "I don't know. She didn't say. She just asked me to bring you up there." We rode the elevator in silence. When the doors opened on the fourth floor, I could hear voices coming from down the hall. Anxious, worried voices that suggested word was already spreading that something was wrong. Tom knocked on the door of room 412. "Emma, it's Uncle Tom. I have Madison with me." The door opened, and there was my sister. Her wedding dress was stunning, the one we'd chosen together after visiting 8 different bridal shops. Her hair and makeup were perfect, done exactly the way she'd dreamed. She looked absolutely beautiful and absolutely heartbroken. "Madison," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Come in." I stepped into the bridal suite and Emma closed the door behind me. The room was elegant and spacious, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the lake, where the ceremony was supposed to take place. Emma's bouquet sat on the dresser, white roses and baby's breath, just like we'd planned. The manila envelope lay open on the bed, its contents scattered across the white comforter. Emma had read everything. "Is it true?" she asked, her eyes searching my face. "All of this? The police reports, the hospital records, the letter from Sarah?" "Yes, I've verified everything multiple times. I even spoke to Sarah's sister in Denver. She confirmed that Sarah was trying to leave Jake when she died." Emma sank into a chair by the window, her dress pooling around her like a white cloud. "How long have you known?" "I started researching after our conversation in the grocery store 3 weeks ago. Something about his story didn't add up, and I couldn't let it go." 3 weeks. She stared out the window at the lake where guests were beginning to take their seats for the outdoor ceremony. "You've known for 3 weeks that my fiancé might be a murderer, and you didn't tell me?" "I tried to tell you. You wouldn't listen. Mom wouldn't listen. Everyone thought I was being dramatic, starting trouble like I always do." "So you decided to ambush me on my wedding day?" The pain in her voice was unbearable. "Emma, I never wanted it to happen this way. I wanted to sit down with you weeks ago and go through all of this together. I wanted to be wrong about everything, but you banned me from the wedding before I could gather all the evidence." She was quiet for a long time, staring out at the lake. "Do you know what the worst part is?" she finally said. "It's not that Jake might have lied to me. It's not even that he might be dangerous. It's that you were right, and I refused to listen." "Emma?" "No, let me finish. You've been right about things before. You saw through Jessica's ex when the rest of us thought he was charming. You knew something was wrong with Sarah's marriage when everyone else envied her perfect life. You have this ability to see through people's facades, and instead of trusting that, I've spent years resenting you for it." She stood up and walked to the bed, looking down at the scattered documents. "I've been so angry at you for asking questions about Jake. I convinced myself you were jealous, that you couldn't stand to see me happy. But you weren't being jealous. You were being a sister. I was trying to protect you. I know that now, and I'm sorry it took me this long to see it." She picked up Sarah's letter and read it again. This poor woman. She knew what was going to happen to her, and no one believed her either. Emma, what are you going to do? She looked toward the window where we could see Jake greeting guests near the altar. He was wearing the charcoal gray suit we'd chosen together, looking handsome and happy and completely normal. Nothing about his appearance suggested he was capable of violence. I don't know, she said honestly. 20 minutes ago, I was about to marry the man I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. Now I find out he might have killed his first wife. How do I even begin to process that? You don't have to decide everything right now, but Emma, you can't marry him today. Not with these questions unanswered. There are 150 people down there who came to see me get married. The photographer, the caterer, the band. Everything's been paid for. Mom will be devastated. Jake's family flew in from 3 different states. None of that matters if you're not safe. She nodded slowly. I know, you're right. I need a few minutes to think. I could hear voices in the hallway. Urgent, worried voices. Someone knocked on the door. Emma? It was Mom's voice. Sweetheart, Uncle Tom said there was some kind of problem. The ceremony is supposed to start in 10 minutes. Emma and I looked at each other. What do I tell her? Emma whispered. The truth. The truth will destroy our family. Emma, keeping secrets to protect people's feelings is how we got into this mess. Sarah Morrison kept secrets to avoid conflict, and it killed her. You don't have to sacrifice your safety to keep our family comfortable. Another knock, more insistent this time. Emma, I'm coming in. The door opened and Mom entered, followed by Rebecca and 2 of Emma's other bridesmaids. They all stopped short when they saw me standing there with Emma in her wedding dress, the documents spread across the bed between us. Madison, what are you doing here? Mom's voice was sharp with anger. I thought we made it clear. Mom, Emma interrupted, you need to see this. She handed Mom Sarah Morrison's death certificate. Jake's first wife didn't die in an accident. She was murdered. The police think Jake did it. The room went completely silent except for the sound of Mom's sharp intake of breath as she read the document. Rebecca and the bridesmaids moved closer, reading over her shoulder. This can't be right, Mom said finally. Jake is a good man. He loves Emma. He would never. Look at the rest of it, Emma said, gesturing to the papers on the bed. Police reports, hospital records, a letter Sarah wrote to her sister describing Jake's threats. Madison found all of this. All eyes turned to me, and I could see the confusion and disbelief in their faces. This wasn't the dramatic troublemaker they'd expected to find. This was someone who'd uncovered evidence of a serious crime. Madison, Mom said slowly, how did you get all this information? Public records, mostly. Some of it came from Sarah's sister, who's been trying to get justice for 3 years. And you're certain this is the same Jake Morrison who's marrying Emma? I showed them the photographs, the timeline, the address records that proved Jake had lived in the Denver apartment where Sarah died. One by one, I watched their expressions change from skepticism to horror to acceptance. Oh my God, Rebecca whispered. Emma, you can't marry him. I know. Emma's voice was calm now, resolved. The question is how to handle this without creating chaos. Forget about chaos, Mom said firmly. Your safety is more important than anyone's comfort level. We're calling off this wedding right now. It was the first time in years that Mom had taken my side over keeping the peace, and the relief I felt was overwhelming. But Emma looked terrified. How do I tell 150 people that I'm calling off my wedding because my fiancé might be a murderer? How do I explain this to Jake's family? You don't owe anyone an explanation, I said. You tell people there's been a family emergency and the wedding is postponed. Later, when you've had time to process all this, you can decide what to share and with whom. What about Jake? I have to face him. I have to tell him something. We all looked toward the window where Jake was still greeting guests, completely unaware that his carefully constructed new life was about to unravel. You don't face him alone, Mom said. We'll handle this together. For the first time since I'd entered the bridal suite, Emma smiled. It was a small, sad smile, but it was genuine. Together, I like that. She walked to the dresser and picked up her bouquet, looking at it for a moment before setting it down again. I'm going to change out of this dress. Can someone go downstairs and start spreading the word that the ceremony is postponed due to a family emergency? I'll do it, Rebecca volunteered. What should I tell the vendors? Tell them to pack everything up. We'll sort out the financial aspects later. Emma looked at me. Madison, will you stay with me while I change? I don't want to be alone right now. Of course. As the others filed out to begin the difficult task of dismissing 150 wedding guests, Emma and I were left alone in the bridal suite. She turned her back to me so I could help with the buttons on her dress, the same way I'd helped her get ready for prom, for graduation, for every important event in her life. I'm sorry, she said as I worked on the tiny pearl buttons. For not listening to you, for banning you from the wedding, for choosing him over you. You don't need to apologize for falling in love with the wrong person, Emma. That's not your fault. But I do need to apologize for not trusting you. You've never steered me wrong, and I should have known that you wouldn't start now. The dress fell away, and Emma stepped out of it carefully. She looked smaller somehow without the elaborate gown, more vulnerable in just her slip and heels. What happens now? She asked. Now we take this information to the police. They can contact the Denver investigators and see if there's enough to reopen Sarah's case. At minimum, they'll want to question Jake. And if he's innocent? If there's some explanation for all this? Then you'll have your answer and you can decide what you want to do with your relationship. But Emma, innocent people don't usually run from police investigations or lie about their past. She nodded and pulled on jeans and a sweater, clothes that made her look like my little sister again instead of a bride. I need to see him. I need to look him in the eye and ask him about Sarah. Are you sure that's a good idea? I'm sure it's a terrible idea, but I need to know who I've been in love with for the past year. I need to understand how I could have been so wrong about someone. Through the window, we could see the chaos beginning below as word spread that the wedding was off. Guests were standing in confused clusters. Vendors were starting to pack up chairs. And somewhere in the middle of it all was Jake, about to discover that his carefully hidden past had finally caught up with him. Emma took my hand. Will you come with me to talk to him? Do you want me to? I want my sister with me when I confront the man who was supposed to become my husband about whether or not he's a killer. I squeezed her hand. Then let's go get some answers.